This is the Sales Babble Podcast, episode 256, How AI, that's artificial intelligence, can give sales superpowers. An interview with Lars Nilson.
Welcome to Sales Babble, the podcast that shares selling secrets for non-sellers. And now your host, Pat Helmers.
Hello, Sales Babblers. This is Pat Helmers. Today we're going to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart, artificial intelligence. Usually when we talk about AI, we talk about all the possibilities that it can bring, the things that it can automate, the time savings, the quality increasing, the lack of frustration that may disappear from things automatically just happening without us really planning. And of course, there's also the conversation of like, the robots are going to come and take away our jobs. That's why I love this topic. And last week I read an article on LinkedIn written by our guest Lars Nilson called, Will AI Replace Sales Development? No, but it will give us superpowers. I read this article and I thought, I've got to figure out who this guy is. I've got to get him on Sales Babble. And Lars graciously agreed to babble here on Sales Babble. So, with no further ado, let's get to it. Welcome, Lars. Are you ready to babble?
I'm ready to go, Pat. Let's do this.
Lars, last week I was on LinkedIn and I read a fascinating article called, Will AI Replace Sales Development? No, but it will give us superpowers. And according to this, you're the author.
Indeed. I felt I had to weigh in on an ongoing conversation, and I would say quite a controversial one based on a lot of the things that I had read from some of the people that were weighing in. And I've been a long-time promoter and builder of sales development and inside sales teams. And so I wanted to make sure that people not only had my take, but had some of the thoughts and feelings around those things that I've been doing to promote the sales development role and function. And so it's near and dear to my heart. And based on the follow-on and the back and forths, it sounds like it is to a bunch of other people too.
So the big takeaway I got from this from this article was that we should start telling salespeople that this is not a good profession to go into. It's going to be totally automated, totally roboticized, and we'd be better off studying something different. If I sum this up properly?
Yeah, I think that's the way the other half, and I don't know if it's half, but that's certainly some of the technology vendors and consultants might have you believe that, but I think it couldn't be further from the truth.
Really?
I think sales is probably.
I can't be farther from the truth. This is not the case.
It is not the case, man. I think that if you're coming out of college or you're young in your career and you have fire in the belly and you want to learn how to negotiate, how to qualify, how to sell, I don't think there's a better time and a place to get into it than a venture-backed business-to-business technology company. And I think that if you pick a company that has great management and great onboarding and great tools, that you can pick up this profession and learn how to qualify, negotiate, sell, and close more than and better than when I got into it 30 years ago, for sure.
But with that said, though, there is a fair amount of automation going on here. And I really liked about your article was that you actually walked through some of these technologies and gave examples of like, this is a good example of where some automation, where an intelligent piece of software could have some value, and places where it may not. So maybe you could go through your article some and share a little bit with the listeners here on Sales Babble, and maybe they should grab some of this technology for themselves.
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly the biggest narrative in sales and marketing, I would say over the last 3, maybe 4 years, has been the introduction of account-based. And what they mean by that is more and more people are realizing that because prospective buyers are taking themselves partway, if not halfway down the sales cycle themselves, because they have access to near perfect information that is available to them online, that we as vendors have to do a much better job of targeting not only the companies that we believe have pain for what our solution can solve, but more and more the specific individuals that are making these purchases, the stakeholders, the people that are involved in the buying cycle. We have to figure out whom they are and target them specifically. The days of branding, sending out messages to just random companies and random people are over. They consider that kind of outreach spam. But more and more, if you are targeting a specific company, and more importantly, the individuals within that company that may have pain for what it is you're trying to sell, then it's going to be a lot easier to get someone to say okay to a 20, 30, 40-minute initial discovery call. And that is where all these vendors are coming in with their, whether it's artificial intelligence or it's companies that help you target your targeted addressable market and help you make decisions around your ideal customer profile. Certainly, most people today have heard of LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Other people may have heard of discover.org or ZoomInfo. These are services that allow you to go in and curate out specific individuals and specific companies that may be extremely relevant to what it is you're trying to sell them. And on top of that, you have sales engagement tools. So a lot of these articles were talking about whether it was Outreach.io or it was SalesLoft or it was InsideSales.com. These are all tools that in the hands of a sales development rep or an inside sales or sales rep, you can do one-to-many outreach, and you can target and you can focus, and more importantly, you can personalize the messages, whether they be email, whether they be voice messages you're leaving, or social touches, or even now there are companies helping you on top of that send out direct mail, personalized direct mail pieces. So I think that's where the automation story is coming in, but certainly to orchestrate and quarterback all of those touch points and those sequences, you still have to have a human, in my opinion, to make all of that work and to orchestrate all of that.
So how is this artificial intelligence? Or are we just using that term pretty loosely? And I mean, it's one thing to be able to like go into a database like LinkedIn, and I do this all the time, right? There's a company that I'm targeting. I go in there, I look for the I look for the company, I look who works for that. I find the person who I think is the right person, then reach out to them. I personalize it, reach out to them. I'm doing the thinking here. Are these technologies doing that same process that I'm doing, but automating it somehow? Is that really AI, or is that just a database query?
Well, I mean, so now you're hitting on a topic that a lot of people are confused about, because people will use artificial intelligence and machine learning in the same sentence. And to truly understand, dig in and understand exactly what that means, I think has been lost on a lot of people. Everyone is now inserting AI and ML into the taglines of their big data. What's the word I'm trying to use here? Technology. And so I think it's hard with everyone. There are vendors that truly are artificially intelligent, and they are using algorithms, and they are amassing huge amounts of data, and they are being able to make a lot of things easier to find and easier to target. As far as what AI and ML will become, I think it's anyone's guess. I'm bumbling along here just like you, trying to figure it out. And that's why I do believe that humans are going to be involved for a very long time, especially in the orchestration part. I think I'm getting myself in trouble here a little bit. I don't know that I completely, truly, and understand how AI is going to be 100% taking over the jobs of a sales reps. I just don't believe it.
Yes, neither do I. And I think, if anything, in the current, because of social media, because there's been so much automation, because it's so easy to get spammed, I think people, I think that personal connection has ever the more value than it ever has in the past. I've been working with a client who comes from South Africa, and he says he can't get over how skeptical Americans are. That we're not so relationship based because it's a big country, and the more that you could do to build that, the far more successful you're going to be.
Well, I think that's also where LinkedIn has helped us in sales tremendously, is we're able to triangulate and perhaps understand that there is someone in our personal networks that is connected to and directly linked to someone that we may have targeted to try to sell to. Way better and way more powerful to get an introduction by someone that you know to someone that's 2 or 3 degrees separated from you. Most of the introductions I make when people request them from me are to people they're trying to get a hold of. And I would say that more than 50% of the time, an introduction from me to someone else that I know, making that connection to a third party, is going to net a warm introduction rather than, and even a brilliantly personalized email may still end up in the bone pile or in the with a delete, but a personal connection as curated out of LinkedIn, I think is the way to go, and is probably one of the only ways that someone is going to get me to help them. I'll help out a personal friend or colleague all day long if they're trying to get to someone that I know personally. I will make that effort if I'm asked. Still today, it doesn't happen that often. I will get a personal sales development email sequence, 2 to 3 times a day, and I'll still hit delete. If I get a personal request from someone that I know to give them a leg up in an account because they've done the work to triangulate that I'm somehow related to professionally, I will give that the time of day.
What are some superpowers that AI can add to us? What kind of tools, what kind of superpowers can add to us to speak to your article here?
Well, I mean, finding the people that have the titles. And again, you have, as a salesperson, have to do the work. Your company has to do the work in trying to figure out whom the exact right list of customers or potential customers that you want to target. They also have to do the work in understanding the titles of the people that are relevant and that are likely going to be involved in the decision making. Once you come up with your targeted addressable market and your target personas, I think that's when the superpowers of LinkedIn and outreach and Gong and all these other technologies that are going to make your SDR more targeted and coach them up on the right things to say and do once you're involved in a qualification cycle is a force multiplier.
You've mentioned SDR quite a few times, the sales development rep, that first person who is turning leads into prospects. Is there any technology later in the sale for account managers, for closers?
Well, I mean, CRM is always going to be a technology that sales reps have to deal with and adopt. I think on top of that, I think LinkedIn Sales Navigator is just as relevant. I think the sales reps today that are coming from the world of SDRs and ISRs, which most of them are, they've been brought into and understand the power of an engagement tool like an outreach. And if they have the if they have the wherewithal and they understand how to use it, I think they're going to make their way into the hands of a quota-carrying sales rep. I think that research tools, whether it's discover.org or ZoomInfo, also play a part for sales reps. Read receipts. All the sales engagements tools now allow sales reps to understand whether or not, an email they are sending is being looked at, whether or not a link embedded in an outreach is being clicked on. Now you have chatbots that are being manned, maybe not by sales rep, by marketing departments and LDRs and SDRs. So I think for sales reps, the more they tune into those tools that are being leveraged by their inside counterparts are going to help them be better. If I was a sales rep today, I certainly would be leveraging the one-to-many power that a engagement tool can provide. I don't know that I want to necessarily spend all of my time relying on inbound leads and appointments being drummed up by SDRs. I'm going to want to use those tools myself.
If we go back to Sales Navigator, I think something what's interesting about it is there's two real powers that it has. One is the ability, the search capabilities are much richer than the free sales than LinkedIn, but also the ability you can message anybody. I think what's unfortunate about that is I get a lot of spam. Maybe I'm going to say a lot, but I get some spam on this LinkedIn IN messages that people just sending me something like, for me, what happens to me is like, get me on your podcast. It's in like 3 stars. Get me on your podcast, and there's a little biography about them. I mean, they've done nothing. And whenever I get someone who wants to be on a sales podcast who has such bad salesmanship, I just don't want to have them on my podcast.
Well, I think you got to be real. My LinkedIn tribe is only anyone that I've either sent a request to that I know or got to meet at an event, or someone in my network that I want to be connected to. And I always reach out with a personalized note. And the only ones that I will accept, the only LinkedIn requests that I will accept are ones from people that I don't know, are personalized to me and give me context. Hey, Lars, I was at, the Topo Summit and I heard you speak, and I just want to let you know that I, kind of enjoyed what you were saying and yada, yada. If they've gone to the trouble of personalizing and giving me context to who they are in relation to why I might be accepting, then I'll go ahead and do that. But a random solicitation of someone that I don't know, and they haven't created context for me as to why I would want them, they'll never end up in my LinkedIn tribe.
I struggle with that. Lots of times I'll accept them, then I'll send them a message. How did you connect with me? Why did you find me? Do you listen to my podcast? I'm surprised how many people will say, yes, I do listen to your podcast. But for some reason, they don't have the wherewithal to do something like that. And I get an interesting conversation going with them. But it's almost like I have to be the grown-up in the room.
Yeah, I think for someone like you that's trying to build a brand and you've got listeners probably far and wide internationally, and this is part of your marketing. And so the one-to-many is probably really smart for you. For me, every day I'll get someone that reaches out to me and says, hey, Lars, do you know this person? And, you're first degree connected with them. I'd like an intro from you. And 9 times out of 10, I'm going to know exactly who they're talking about because I'm very careful with whom I accept. If I were to accept just about anyone that did, I would very infrequently be able to help someone because I don't know them at all. And a lot of my brand is dependent upon me knowing all the people that are in my network. So I'm very careful with whom I accept. But if I was like you and building a following, a listenership, a readership, yeah, I might open up the parameters so that my guess is you're using LinkedIn, as a marketing database, and I think for you that's smart.
Yeah,
Yeah,
strongly.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm in it all day long.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good stuff. This is interesting stuff. I think there's a lot of I really agree with your messaging. I mean, I leverage Active Campaign to do one dependent many marketing, and there's social media tools too that that I've been using for years. Although I'm not as excited about them as I used to be, but I do think technology can help us a lot. But I think the real takeaway here is, and correct me if I'm wrong, is like the personal touch still matters.
Oh, without a doubt. Personal touch, and I think increasingly more importantly, personal connection. I think those are the two things that will help move the needle going forward. Spray and pray and buckshot and trying to, catch as many as you can with as wide a messaging. I think you're going to get yourself in trouble. I mean, now we have GDPR, and now we have the similar. We have the similar here in California regulations. I think you really have to be careful who you directly contact. It has to be relevant to them. Otherwise, you're going to get people that opt out immediately and ask you to take them out. And if they were previously opted in, and you just end up completely hitting them too often with your opt-in marketing database, outbound email messaging, you're going to find yourself with less and less people because they're going to opt out for sure.
Yeah, and you may actually get fired by your email company too.
No doubt, and that's coming. I don't know that I've seen lawsuits come yet, but it's coming for sure.
Yeah. Lars, how can people find you online? How can people find this article that you wrote on LinkedIn?
I am at lars@salessource.com. Last name is Nilson, Nilsson. Feel free to LinkedIn connect with me with a personal note, and happy to share more insights for anyone that wants to follow up.
What's SalesSource?
SalesSource is a small strategic sales advisory firm. I just exited a company called Cloudera, where I spent 5 years building out their inside sales and sales operation teams. And I spent the last 6 months bringing to bear this small sales advisory firm. And we help companies, large, medium, and small, build out their inside sales teams and also help them with technology selection and really build out their sales operation tech stack.
Excellent. I'll make sure and put your LinkedIn and your here in the show notes if people want to reach out to you. I really appreciate you writing this article, and thanks for coming here on Sales Babble and babbling a little bit with us. Great topic.
Yeah.
Great topic.
Well, I appreciate that, Pat, and there was definitely some babble on my part. So, listen, have a great rest of your MLK weekend, and hopefully you and I will bump into each other at a meetup or a conference soon.
I'm certain we will.
Thanks, Pat. I appreciate it.
As Lars mentioned, there's a ton of really great tools that you can use to improve your productivity and efficiency and the quality of your work when it comes to prospecting and finding new leads. But it's not going to replace the human touch. That's why the conversation went from a tool conversation to a LinkedIn conversation, because that's really the kind of thing that you're going to need to do to make a connection. Like we always say, it's not just B2B and B2C. All sales is P2P, people to people. And that's what's really going to matter, I believe, in a world of loud, spammy social media. To connect with Lars, you can find him in the show notes at www.salesbabble.com. If you got a question or a comment about some of the tools that he mentioned, you can find those in those show notes too. Did you enjoy this podcast? Tell your friends. That's how we grow. That's all I've got for today. Until next week, take care and have a highly successful and a profitable selling day.
Thank you for listening to the Sales Babble podcast. Find us at www.salesbabble.com.